All right, so for the next part, what I want you to do is watch each video and then come back here and double check that your answers are correct. What I want you to know about this part is we're not necessarily worried about does our time line up. It's more so is our graph kind of the way that it should look. Okay. So again, this is just going to be the answers. This is just going to be the answers. And it's going to be a rough sketch. Ms. Sherman is not a good artist. So he starts off by standing and then he goes up the ladder and then he kind of stands there for a moment and then he plops down on the slide, right? Then he sits there and he's like, I'm too scared for this to go down the slide. And then he goes down the slide, but he doesn't actually reach the bottom, right? Because the slide's not on the ground, it's close to it. And then he gets up and he walks away. Okay. And again, yours does not have to be the exact intervals that mine are. It just needs to be a rough sketch, right? Make sure that you could kind of connect, if this were multiple choice, what it would sort of kind of look like, right? All right. So for the second one, notice how this was distance from the camera, right? So if I am on this carousel, right? Say I start here, right? I'm close to the camera. Then the carousel goes around and then comes back. And then goes around and then comes back. And then goes around and then comes back. And then goes around. And then he sits there for a moment and then he walks away from the camera. He doesn't walk towards it. He walks away from the camera. So if we're talking about the distance is getting bigger. Notice how mine are not equal, but again, I would be able to kind of pinpoint and connect, oh, this is what it should look like. Notice how he went around, right? The number of times is corresponding correctly. Okay. It's not just as many loops as I want, right? He went around the carousel 3 times before he got off. Okay. Now for our bum, we have a child who is at the top of a slide. We have a child who is at the top of a slide. Let me make sure that you can see this. Sorry. And so she is kind of sitting up there and then she goes down the slide. And the nice thing is she just like flies down the slide. And then again, the slide for this one is almost touching the ground, but not quite. And then the movie kind of cuts out. So again, probably not the best graph, but close enough. Miss Sherman would be able to figure that out. Okay. And then the last one is the guy with the weight bench. So he starts with his weights about here, and then he brings them down to his chest, right? And then he brings them up, and then he brings them down to his chest, and then he brings them up, and then he brings them down to his chest, and then he brings them up, and then he brings down to his chest, and then he's kind of like struggling, right? He's like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And then he brings them back up and he puts them on the little hook. Okay. So again, it does not need to be the prettiest picture. It does not need to be the best graph. But again, it's the can you pinpoint, right, with options, what it would look like, this increasing and decreasing like we talked about on the first few examples. So great job on that.